Welcome back, deep divers. Today we're going deep on friendship.
Ooh, fun.
Yeah.
I love this topic.
Yeah, and we're taking a slightly unusual route with it today. Our source material is Dr. John Gottman's book, The Relationship Cure.
Okay.
Now, I know what you're thinking. The Relationship Cure, isn't that like all about romantic relationships?
Yeah, that's what I would think.
Right. And you would be right. That is the main focus of the book.
Yeah.
But UT, and this is a big but,
Right.
a lot of Gottman's wisdom is surprisingly applicable to all sorts of relationships, including friendship.
Interesting.
So buckle up, friends. We're about to explore how some of these principles, especially the stuff about our brain's emotional command systems,
Oh, wow.
can help us build stronger, more fulfilling friendships.
That sounds fascinating. I'm excited to dive in.
Yeah, me too. And I should say, for listeners who maybe haven't encountered this idea before, can you give us a little bit of a primer on what these emotional command systems actually are?
Yeah, absolutely. So these emotional command systems, as Gottman calls them, they're like these ingrained patterns in our brains, these presets.
Presets, like buttons.
Yeah, like buttons. I love that.
Okay.
And they shape how we interact with everyone,
Right.
not just romantic partners, but friends, family, colleagues, everyone.
So it's like we have these automatic reactions based on these presets.
Exactly. And there are a few key systems that Gottman identifies.
Okay.
Like you've got the commander-in-chief, always ready to take charge.
I know a few commanders-in-chief.
Right. And then there's the nest builder, who thrives on closeness, connection.
Ah, the cuddlers.
Exactly. Then you have the sensualist, drawn to excitement, attraction.
Ooh, the adventurous type.
Yes. And then we have the explorer, always pushing boundaries, trying new things.
That's me. Big-time explorers.
Awesome. And of course, there's the sentry, all about safety, planning, and careful consideration.
The cautious one.
Yes, exactly. And finally, we have the jester, the life of the party,
The fun one.
the one who brings the laughter and joy.
Okay, so we've got our commanders-in-chief, our nest builders, our explorers, our sentries, our jesters. Sounds like a whole crew.
Right. It's like a whole party in our brains.
And Gottman says these systems are at play in our friendships too.
Absolutely. And that's where things can get really interesting and sometimes even a little messy.
Oh, I bet. So how does this actually work? I mean, like, how do these systems play out in friendships specifically?
Well, think about it. You have two friends, right? Each with their dominant system, or maybe a mix of systems.
Yeah.
And what happens when those systems clash?
Ooh, conflict.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, let's say you're planning a trip with a friend.
Okay, yeah.
And you, the explorer, you want to backpack through the wilderness, right? No map, no plan, just adventure.
Sounds amazing.
Right. But your friend, maybe they're more of a sentry,
Oh.
meticulously researching every potential danger, every campground review.
Yeah, that trip might not happen.
Yeah, that could be a recipe for some serious tension.
For sure. So basically, these systems can create friction if we're not aware of them or if we're not communicating well.
You got it. And Gottman, he gives some great examples in the book of how this plays out in friendships.
Like what?
Well, he talks about friends, competing for attention. One friend might feel smothered while the other's craving closeness.
Oh, yeah. Been there.
Right. Or misunderstandings can happen because friends have different levels of risk aversion. Like one friend might be super spontaneous
The explorer.
while the other's, more
That's the
cautious.
sentry.
Exactly. So these clashes can lead to like hurt feelings, arguments, even resentment if we're not careful.
Okay, so awareness is key. Like knowing about these systems and how they might be impacting our interactions.
Yeah. It's like having a cheat sheet for understanding our friends better
Mm.
and ourselves for that matter.
I love that analogy, a cheat sheet for friendship. So how do we actually put this knowledge into practice? Like besides taking an online quiz to figure out our dominant system.
Right. It's got to be more than just labeling ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
It's about paying attention. Like when you're interacting with friends, when do you feel most energized? When do you feel drained or frustrated?
Interesting.
Yeah, those are clues. Those are your systems talking to you.
I like that. It's like becoming a detective of your own emotions.
Exactly. And then you can start to see, okay, maybe this is my dominant system, and maybe this is my friend's dominant system, and how do those interact?
So instead of getting annoyed when a friend cancels plans last minute, maybe I can take a breath and think, okay, maybe their sentry system is just feeling overwhelmed right now.
Exactly. And that shift in perspective can make a world of difference.
Totally. It's about like having compassion for their limitations, right?
Absolutely. We all have our quirks and our emotional baggage.
Right. It's not about excusing bad behavior, but understanding where it might be coming from.
And that understanding can lead to more open and honest conversations.
But those conversations can be tricky, right? Like, how do we bring this up with friends without making them feel like we're analyzing them or putting them on the spot?
That's where, Gottman's emphasis on emotional intelligence comes in.
Oh, okay.
It's not just about understanding your own feelings, but being attuned to your friends' feelings too.
Yeah. Wow.
Reading those nonverbal cues.
The body language.
Yeah, listening with empathy, expressing yourself in a way that invites connection, not confrontation.
I love that. So instead of accusing a friend of being controlling, maybe I could say something like, hey, I sometimes feel a little overwhelmed when you take charge of everything. Could we try making decisions together more often?
Exactly. It's about expressing your needs and preferences without blaming or shaming.
Finding that balance between asserting yourself and respecting your friend's perspective.
Yes, it's a dance for sure, but it's a dance worth learning.
So we've talked about self-awareness, understanding our emotional command systems, learning to communicate more effectively. What else does Gottman have in store for us?
Well, he also dives into this fascinating concept called emotional heritage. Basically, he argues that our childhood experiences, those early lessons about emotions and relationships, they can really shape how we approach our friendships as adults.
Okay, emotional heritage. Sounds kind of heavy.
It can be. Imagine growing up in a family where, like, anger was never expressed openly or vulnerability was seen as a weakness.
Ooh, yeah.
Those early experiences can create patterns that we carry with us. Maybe we struggle to assert ourselves in friendships or have difficulty opening up.
I definitely relate to that.
Yeah, it's common. And the good news is that by understanding our emotional heritage, we can start to make more conscious choices in our friendships. We can recognize those patterns and decide if they're serving us.
So instead of just repeating those patterns unconsciously, we can choose to break free and create healthier connections.
Exactly. It's about taking ownership of our emotional baggage.
I like that. It's not ignoring it, it's owning it.
Yes, and that's where Gottman's practical advice really comes in. He offers specific strategies and techniques for building stronger, more resilient friendships.
Okay, I'm all ears. Give us the goods.
All right, first, let's talk about Gottman's concept of bids for connection.
Bids for connection. What are those?
Well, they're basically these subtle attempts we make to connect with each other, often without even realizing it.
Like what?
It could be a quick text to share a funny meme or a thoughtful comment on a social media post,
Oh, okay.
or even just asking, "How was your day?" and genuinely listening to the answer.
So it's not about grand gestures, but those little everyday interactions.
Exactly. And Gottman uses this really interesting example from his own life to illustrate this point. He talks about his cousin, Kurt, who was a garment salesman.
Wait, a salesman?
I know, right? Not who you'd expect.
Not exactly a touchy-feely profession.
Right. But Kurt, he built this incredibly successful business, not through aggressive sales tactics,
Mm.
but by prioritizing genuine relationships with his clients. Yeah. He would spend time chatting with them, getting to know their needs, only offering products he genuinely believed would benefit them.
It's like he was practicing the art of friendship in a business setting.
Exactly. And it worked for him big time. And Gottman argues we can apply this same principle to our friendships. It's about being present, responsive, and showing our friends we value them.
That's a great reminder. It's not about keeping score or expecting something in return.
Right. It's about those genuine moments of connection.
So we need to pay attention to those bids for connection.
Absolutely. But what happens when those bids go unnoticed? Or when we misinterpret them?
Yeah, that can lead to problems.
It can. And that's where understanding those emotional command systems we talked about earlier can be so helpful. Like if your friend is feeling stressed, maybe their sentry system is on high alert,
Makes sense.
and they might not be as receptive to your bids for connection.
So instead of taking it personally, I can try to see it from their perspective.
Exactly. Have some compassion. Maybe adjust your approach.
This is making me realize that strong friendships require a lot of flexibility and understanding.
You got it. It's not about finding a friend who perfectly matches all your needs.
Right.
It's about learning to navigate those differences.
With grace and empathy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where Gottman's advice on sharpening those emotional communication skills comes in.
Okay, tell me more about that.
It's about learning to express your needs clearly, respectfully, being attuned to your friend's cues, finding ways to bridge those communication gaps.
So it's not just about understanding the dynamics, but also developing the skills to navigate them.
You got it. And this applies to all sorts of relationships, by the way, not just friendships.
Oh, interesting. Like what?
Well, Gottman actually dedicates a whole section of his book to building better connections with colleagues.
Really? So he thinks these principles apply in the workplace too.
Absolutely. He argues that many of the same principles that apply to romantic relationships and friendships can help us create more positive and productive work environments.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's dive into that next.
Let's do it.
We'll be back after a quick break to explore how we can bring more heart and soul into our professional lives.
Sounds good.
All right, so we're back and ready to dive into the workplace. How can we use these relationship principles to build stronger connections with our colleagues?
Well, I think the first thing to remember is that, even in a professional setting,
Yeah.
we're still human beings, right?
Right, with feelings and stuff.
Exactly. We have emotions, we have needs, we desire connection.
And we're making bids for connection all the time, even if we don't realize it.
Absolutely. Those seemingly insignificant interactions,
Like what?
a friendly greeting in the hallway,
Yeah.
a quick chat at the coffee machine,
Uh-huh.
those are all opportunities to build rapport.
I like that. It's not just about the work, it's about the human connection.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Gottman, he emphasizes those everyday rituals of connection, those small gestures.
What kind of gestures?
Well, even something as simple as making a point to warmly welcome new hires, give them a good orientation.
That makes sense. Sets the tone from day one.
Exactly. And then those arrivals and departures.
Arrivals and departures.
Yeah, like when we enter and leave the workplace,
Okay.
taking a few minutes to chat with colleagues, just acknowledge each other's presence.
Instead of just rushing in and out.
Yeah, it can make a big difference.
Creates a more connected environment.
Absolutely. And even those dreaded team meetings.
Don't get me started on team meetings.
I know, right? But Gottman suggests something interesting. He calls it emotional check-ins.
Emotional check-in.
Yeah. At the start of each meeting, everyone briefly shares how they're feeling about their work or a specific project.
That's interesting.
It might seem a little touchy-feely for some workplaces, but he argues it can actually help to surface issues.
I can see that, like prevent things from festering.
Exactly. And he also suggests, using bulletin boards, staff newsletters, those kinds of things,
Okay.
to create opportunities for personal sharing, beyond work tasks.
Oh, like that office he mentions in the book.
Which one?
The one where they posted baby pictures and vacation photos on the bulletin board.
Oh, yeah. That's a great example.
It's like a visual reminder that we're all human beings with lives outside of work.
Exactly. And then they're classic workplace rituals, like birthday celebrations.
Everyone loves a good birthday party.
Right. But Gottman, he reminds us that those celebrations,
Yeah.
they're a great way to show appreciation, build camaraderie.
And he even suggests celebrating birthdays within smaller teams.
Yes, to make it feel more personal.
I like that.
And in today's world where so much communication is digital,
Emails, Slack, all that.
exactly, Gottman really emphasizes the importance of FaceTime with our colleagues.
Good old-fashioned face-to-face interaction.
Yes, he suggests simple things like keeping your office door open,
Okay.
opting for a quick chat instead of an email when possible.
Be more present.
Exactly. And those informal moments around the coffee pot, those are golden opportunities for connection.
Like that manager he mentions, the one who kept a jar of chocolates on her desk.
Oh, yeah, I love that story.
It's such a simple but effective way to create that sense of openness and approachability.
Absolutely. It's those small gestures that can make a big difference. And speaking of gestures, Gottman, he even offers some advice on performance reviews.
Performance reviews, those are usually so stressful.
I know, right? But he advocates for a more collaborative approach.
Okay.
Where the review is seen as an opportunity for growth, not judgment.
I like that. It takes the pressure off.
Exactly. And he suggests creating a performance agreement at the time of hire.
So everyone's on the same page from the beginning.
Yes. Outlining goals, expectations, how those align with the organization's objectives. That way the review becomes more of a conversation, about progress, contributions.
More of a partnership.
Exactly. And let's not forget about holiday celebrations.
Oh, yes. Those are important.
Gottman, he believes those festivities can be really powerful for colleagues to let loose, have fun, connect on a more personal level.
He tells that great story about the government institution.
The one with the epic holiday decorations and the talent show.
Yeah. That sounds amazing.
Right. Those shared traditions, they create lasting memories.
And strengthen those bonds.
Exactly. And he also emphasizes the importance of recognizing special accomplishments,
Like what?
whether it's through, formal awards programs
Okay.
or spontaneous celebrations.
Like that web design firm he mentions, where they share positive feedback on hiring anniversaries.
Oh, yeah, that's a great example.
It's a nice way to foster that culture of appreciation.
Absolutely. And those spontaneous celebrations, when a team achieves a challenging goal,
Yeah, those are the best.
it's about taking a moment to acknowledge the hard work, express gratitude, celebrate those victories.
He even encourages leaders to give heartfelt speeches, recognizing individual contributions.
Yeah. It's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
And, those emotional command systems we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
they can even play a role in how we celebrate at work.
How so?
Gottman shares this funny anecdote about software development teams at Microsoft, where managers would promise to shave their heads if their team met a tough deadline.
No way, really.
Yeah. It's a lighthearted tradition, but it speaks to the power of rituals.
And tapping into those different emotional command systems.
Exactly. It's about finding creative ways to celebrate, acknowledge hard work, foster that sense of connection.
This has been so eye-opening. It really feels like we've been given a whole new toolkit for building better relationships, not just in our personal lives, but at work, too.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up our deep dive into the relationship cure, I think it's important to remember one key point that Gottman makes about friendship.
What's that?
It's a choice. We choose to nurture these bonds, we invest our time and energy.
It's not something that just happens to us.
Right. We actively cultivate these relationships.
That's a powerful reminder. We have the power to shape our friendships,
Absolutely. And it starts with that conscious choice to connect.
to invest in the relationships that matter.
Exactly. And remember, it's not about finding perfect friends. It's about treating those perfect moments within our friendships.
So true. Those shared experiences, the laughter, the connection.
That's what makes it all worthwhile.
I love that. Well, to all our listeners out there, I hope this deep dive has inspired you to appreciate the power of friendship and maybe even take a chance on deepening those connections in your life.
And remember, friendship is a gift, not just to others, but to ourselves.
Beautifully said. And with that, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the relationship cure and the surprising science of strong friendships.
Thanks for joining us.
This is The Deep Dive, signing off. As we wrap up this deep dive into the relationship cure,
Yeah.
one thing that really struck me is how much of what we've discussed, about building these strong connections,
Uh-huh.
it applies not just to our close friendships,
Right.
but also those more casual connections we have.
Oh, absolutely. We often focus so much on those ride or die
Yeah,
friendships,
the core group,
but those smaller connections, the acquaintances, the neighbors.
even the barista at your coffee shop,
Exactly. They all matter.
they contribute to our sense of belonging.
Totally. It's like we're all part of this interconnected web of relationships.
And even those tiny interactions,
Yeah.
they can have a ripple effect.
They really can. And Gottman, he actually talks about this he calls it the village.
The village.
Yeah, like that network of support
Yeah.
that extends beyond our immediate circle.
So it's not just about those deep, intimate bonds.
Right.
It's about all those smaller connections that make up our social lives.
Precisely. And those smaller connections, sometimes they can blossom into something more.
Oh, like those friendships that form out of the blue.
Exactly. Through shared activities, chance encounters,
You join a book club, you volunteer.
and suddenly you've got this new friend.
It happens. Gottman tells that story about the woman going through a divorce.
Oh, yeah, the one on the ferry.
Yeah. She starts talking to this other woman who's also having a tough time.
They start saving seats for each other.
And over time, boom, friendship.
It's amazing, right, how these mundane interactions can become something meaningful,
It really highlights the importance of being open to connection.
even in unexpected places.
You never know where your next great friend might be lurking.
Right. Could be at the gym, the dog park, even the grocery store.
That's what makes friendship so exciting.
It's a journey, ever evolving,
And we have the power to shape it,
through our choices, our willingness to be open, vulnerable.
to put ourselves out there.
Exactly. So to all our listeners, I hope this deep dive has inspired you to think about your own friendships.
Yeah, appreciate those close bonds.
Nurture the casual connections.
And maybe even strike up a conversation with someone new.
You never know what might happen,
And remember, as we've been saying, friendship is a gift,
not just to others.
but to ourselves.
It's about creating a life filled with connection.
Laughter, those shared moments that make it all worthwhile.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the relationship cure and the surprising science of strong friendships.
Thanks for joining us. It's been a pleasure.
This is The Deep Dive. Signing off.